Hi, welcome to Being and Creating, the visual podcast where we explore being with what is while creating the life that you want to be living. I'm here with Kim Forman of Under the Kimfluence, and I am Lisa Wilson with Being Breath. And today we are talking about clutter. Never know what that word brings up in people. You say clutter, there's always these reactions, right? So I explored something recently over on my site where I wrote about this because I had a personal experience that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I had a little oven fire. It happens. But I think part of the reason that it happened was because I admit that I may have not cleaned my oven in just a little while. And it reminded me that these things that we leave unattended, these things that we don't pay attention to, that we let collect and grow, actually can have really severe consequences, even if it's something really, really little. So I thought about this, and I thought about all the stuff that we have. Stuff can mean all sorts of different things. Stuff is our physical stuff. Stuff is digital stuff, emails and collected notes and such. Stuff is thoughts. Stuff is beliefs, memories, dreams, all these things. Okay? There's a difference between stuff and clutter. Clutter, as I came to define it, as I keep thinking about it, is stuff that we've collected that is unattended to, that keeps us from living the life that we want to live. So, and I keep thinking about this and thinking, yeah, but it kind of makes sense, right? So
it makes so much sense.
It does. And you think about it, you start thinking in your own life about the things that you haven't been giving attention to, whatever it is, mental stuff, physical stuff, and how quickly that stuff can grow. And it's disconcerting. And so as we move into our conversation about, being and creating, being with what is requires that presence and that conscious attention to whatever it is, to the stuff of our lives. And we can't, if we go with these definitions, we can't be with what is if we are not attending to it, if we're letting this clutter grow, because it's like this hidden stuff back over here that keeps us from actually being present with all of it. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense.
Good. So I wanted the physical clutter is an easy one to look at. There's Marie Kondo, there's all these, things that people talk about with letting go and releasing and shifting it around and storage and organization and all of these things. But there's also the mental clutter. And I think that this one gets overlooked a lot. So that's something that I wanted to kind of bring up alongside the physical clutter today, but to talk about the mental clutter and the things that are going on in our mind that feel, jumbled or ignored, that pop up every once in a while. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, well, that just reminded me of how I had been avoiding calling the IRS and avoiding it. And I knew that it needed to happen. And I just, it just seemed like so much. And I built it up in my head. And then I was reading a copy of Bella Grace magazine, which is, if you've never read it before, I highly recommend it. Oh my God, I'm obsessed. I digress. I guess the editor's note at the beginning, she was saying something about if there's anything in your life that you've left unattended, it's time to do it now. Do it now. She said, because the longer you go on, the more it builds up in your mind, and you just, and then when you do it, it's not nearly the insurmountable obstacle that you are thinking that it's going to be. I called them several days later.
I love it. I love how.
Because I'm a slow learner. But yeah, it was. I mean, yeah, it took me like an hour to get them on the phone, but I was, I was reading while I was waiting, and it was no big deal. Like it was like da 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 da, da, I'm done, and now I don't have to think about
Right, right. Part
it.
of me wants to jot down that note, but I'm gonna have to go back and listen to our recording the way it is because I'm that the unattended stuff. I'll get to, when we talk about creating the environment and such, but a recent release that I had of books and the thoughts that were actually keeping me holding on to them. It wasn't the books themselves and the clutter itself that I wanted, the stuff itself. It was the thoughts behind it. But I'll get to that. Hopefully come back.
So what that leads me into is that our mind is shaped by what we feed it.
Mm.
Everything around you shapes your thoughts. Your thoughts create your actions, which creates who you are.
Totally.
Like garbage in, garbage out. If you are constantly watching shows that are not necessarily the best input, if you're constantly hanging out with people who, as we were talking about last week, drag you down, or who are just negative all the time,
Yeah.
if you have physical clutter, anything that you have around you, that even if it's just like a second of thought that you have, you're pulling yourself away from what it is that you're wanting to actually accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
It ties right back in. The first day with a new tongue. It ties back in with what you were saying before about just if it's well, now I've totally lost my train of thought. But
It happens.
what was your definition of clutter? Say it again.
Yeah, the stuff that we've collected that is unattended to, that keeps us from living the life that we want to live.
That.
Yeah, and it speaks exactly to what you're talking about, that for some people, sitting down and watching shows may be something that is feeding into the life that they want to be living, that they have consciously chosen. Maybe it's a filmmaker or a storyteller or something like that. So watching these shows, like builds up and creates those ideas. But for other people, like you were talking about, the stuff that's coming in, this kind of junk, as much as we don't want to admit it, it sits with us. You may think that you can watch a show at night and then you go to bed and it's done. But that hour of time that you spent, half an hour, hour of time that you spent, actually collects, like you said, your mind, it collects up here and it creates clutter because it's not something that's moving you towards the life that you want to be living. So
it's not moving you toward the life that you want to be living. It's moving you away from the life that you want to be living.
Yes. Yes. That's a very good point. It's a very good point. Nothing is just like kind of inert. It's either, bumping you this way or bumping you that way. I love that point.
Yeah. And, sometimes you have to make decisions just because you want to do something. It sounds like fun or it might be cool. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean that you have to do it or that it is an ideal thing for you to do. That's not to say that you can never do it. Like you don't, but you have to make a choice. Right. Are you going to do it in a way that is, are you going to do it in your downtime, basically?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something we'll, talk about a little bit later, is this idea of choice and how every single second of our life is choices. And yet we tend to focus on the bigger ones. And that's, I think, what leads to clutter is, the one little thing that we set aside, the little paper that's like, I can't make this decision right now. I'm just going to set it on the counter. Or, the clothes item that you're like, oh, I think I like it and I'm going to wear it later, maybe. So I'm just going to leave it in the closet. And suddenly you've got 5 pieces like that. And you see that every morning. And again, it's clutter. And it's this constant process of going through the choices that we have to make. And like we always talk about just being able to be more present with them and not constricted by, I don't know what to do, by, fear or any of the underlying things that come with it. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And I want to interject one more thing before we get back on track.
Yes. Okay.
Is that the every decision that you put off, or everything that you say, oh, I'll do that later, you're basically offloading on your future self, assuming that that future self is going to like be a much better version of yourself, who's always on target and is totally ready to do this thing. And really what you're doing is being unkind to that future self.
Seriously, I'm like, hold on, repeat that. I want to write that down.
It's being recorded. Don't worry about it.
I'm gonna go back and watch this. But it's so true. And how much do we actually sabotage our own lives when we do that, when we put off these decisions until later,
Mhm.
enter midlife crisis, enter deathbed, I wish I would have, that's, oh my goodness, yes. That one is leading to all of our thought bubbles. So I'm going to stop talking for a second. That one goes, oh my gosh. So thank you.
We can continue that conversation in the comments.
Exactly. I know. Please, anybody jump in. If that affected you as much as, it affected me just right there, jump in. Please, this conversation is so that we can all talk about this. So we're like, yes, we're not alone. And yes, that resonates with me too.
And I wish I could remember where I got that thought from.
That's a whole other thing.
Not to give proper credit, but I read it.
There we go. That's all right. We are all these compilations of all these things we've read and heard and done and been, and they're truly, as much as it's good to give credit where credit is due, I think that we are all just this mix of things. And so I understand. Oh, okay. So we've talked about, we agree that there is this struggle, that the more that, we're able to be present with it, number one, the more it can help, but also number two, the more overwhelming it gets. And I think that many of us have been here before, where you start becoming aware. It's like when you host a party. You ever hosted a party? And you start looking around your house and you're like, oh, I totally forgot about that. I'm going to go clean that and take care of that. And then the second you do that, you look next to it, you're like, oh, they're going to notice that stain on the couch. I'm going to get that one off, that I haven't been thinking about it. And suddenly there is this tremendous overwhelm by all of these things that there are to do. And I don't know if it's just me and like my paranoia, but it's totally how I feel. So there's this sense of overwhelm that could come in when we start understanding how much that we push down, how much that we don't attend to in our daily lives. And I think this is the step that I want to move into then when we talk about creating the life that you really want to be living, so that we're all able to take a deep breath, truly open ourselves up to what is, to these things that are happening, to this stuff that we have, even to the clutter that's hanging in on there, and say, okay, all right, it's all good. It's all good. This is where I'm at. This is what I've created for myself so far. Now I'm just going to take tiny little steps to decide where it is that I want to be. Part of that's mental, setting down and thinking about it. Part of it may be physical, letting go of one thing here, deleting this email that you've been hanging on to, responding to it, etc. So there are some things that we had talked about before, about these ideas that you had, about, I'm going to let you talk about, as we move into creating these really valuable ideas that you have. And I'd love to have those shared with everybody.
Okay, so I did mention Benjamin Hardy on the recording when we first started, didn't I?
I'm not sure. I forget what we talked
about.
Okay,
let me back up, because when I said that your mind is shaped by what you feed it and everything around you has an effect, that and what I'm about to speak about comes from Benjamin Hardy's amazing book, Willpower Doesn't Work. It is the second book that I've ever read that I underlined a ton of stuff in, and then immediately went back as soon as I was done and wrote out everything that I underlined, because I wanted to remember it.
We'll put a link beneath wherever this video appears. We'll put a link to that.
Yeah, fabulous book. So in it, he talks about, for peak performance, we need two kinds of environments. One environment is basically a high stress environment, but not a like icky, heart pounding, like not a distress environment, but a positive stress environment where you feel forced to get what you have in you out, like whatever it is that you have to do to get your work done, to get it done. That's the kind of environment, like like, I'm going to get in there and I'm going to do it. I'm going to knock this out, and that's it. And then when you're done with that, you should have a totally separate environment for absolute rest and rejuvenation. Now, this is something that I need a lot of work on, because I tend to do a lot of I'm a rabid online class addict, as is Lisa. We're going to out ourselves here. But I tend to do a lot of my class time and like my photo editing, and I do it sitting in my bed, which is terrible on so many levels. So many levels. Yeah, I'm definitely not doing my posture any favors with that. As a massage therapist, I should be ashamed of myself, but the plumber's sink is always leaky. So you need these two types of environments, but unfortunately most of us have an environment that is neither set for peak performance nor for rest and rejuvenation.
That completely makes sense. I look around my house and I'm like, yeah, it is just kind of is. It doesn't, it's not really, really inspiring and, oh my gosh, I gotta go do this thing. That's awesome. But it's also, I look around and I'm like, no, I wouldn't totally let go.
Right. Because there's that thing that needs to be done. And whether it's in your peak performance space or in your rest and rejuvenation space, if it's, if there's that pile of clothes that hasn't been folded, or, that stack of mail that hasn't been dealt with, those things they're pulling you away. They are distracting you and keeping you from doing the thing that you want to do.
Yes, totally. I think it's a perfect segue that leads me into this passion that I've been feeling recently about the importance, as we are in these environments, whatever they may be, if they are, neutral or eustress, like the positive stress inducing or completely relaxing, that it is this practice that we have, that most of us don't have, that I'm just kind of sort of moving into, and I envy those people who do, about paying attention to the little things. We all are familiar probably with the Don't Sweat the Small Stuff When It's All Small Stuff book. I'm like kind of the opposite. I'm like, sweat the small stuff, because there's not really that much big stuff, because all the big stuff are little things. Little things. That's what stuff is. That's what clutter is. Clutter is 20 gazillion papers that are stacked up. Emails, your inbox, because it's, 20,000 emails, somewhere around there, maybe. I'm not saying that I would ever collect that many, that would be in there. Like we talked about, that's that one decision at a time, right? I mean, like, seriously, we talk about our online courses and all the ones that are, piled up. I'm like, oh, I should go take that one eventually. But what I think makes a difference for me is the little itty bitty things that I do without clinging to it or without rejecting it. So for example, I walk down the hallway and I notice my daughter's sock is out. Okay. That's stuff. It's stuff. It doesn't where it's not where it belongs. It's not really, contributing to my life or anything, but it's not collected and it's not being unattended to. It's there. Okay. The second that I walk past that sock, it creates a little thought here like, frustration. She should have dealt with it, or I should deal with it right now, or why is that sock in the hallway? The next step that I take past that sock, I guarantee that thought is going to build upon itself. Like, oh my gosh, she's so messy and this is so frustrating. And 5 steps later, by the time that I get to my bedroom, it is this full-blown war inside my head about, oh my gosh, this is never going to be the house that I want to live in, and my kids are just so messy. What am I going to do? It happens. It happens. So if I back up and I go right back to that sock and I pick it up and drop it in the hamper that's right there, suddenly it's this release. It's this release. That doesn't mean that I'm going to continue to take care of everything that's in my path just because it happens to be there. It means that what I'm doing is attending to whatever is in this moment that is going to move me towards the life that I want to be living. In that moment, picking up the sock is going to clear up my mind a little bit more so that by the time that I make it to the bedroom, perhaps my mind is focusing on, oh, what am I going to eat for lunch? Or the feel of my feet on the carpet as I step on the step. It's the little itty bitty decisions that are made repeatedly throughout the day that reduce or eliminate being really far-fetched, but that clutter that happens, that mind clutter, the physical clutter, whatever. And then working with other people, we talked about finding people that support you or that bring you down or whatever, to help bring them into this space or allow them to move out of your space, to continuously, again, create this life that we want to be living. And I'll jump back really quickly. I'm watching time so we don't go too long on this. And I know there's one more thought, like I want to hear from you too. But my recent release of the books that I had talked about, for most people that are connected with us and, kind of in our circles, books are those like sacred, you don't touch them. That is not clutter, that is stuff. And don't you dare get your hands on my books because those are staying. Thank you very much. But what I realized was that the books that I had on my shelf were ideas that I wanted to follow through on. They were things, and oh, there's a phone call. I knew we were going to get one of those in this recording. Okay, fantastic. Yay. Real life, thank you very much. This is what I want to underscore. So don't mind the phone ringing back there. That's okay. The books on the shelf were ideas and dreams and things that I wanted to get to. That was clutter. They were things that I simply do not have the bandwidth to attend to right now because I'm attending to tennis lessons and I am attending to cleaning my house and I am attending to caring for my soul where it is right now. It's not to say that I don't still have books up there that are fueling my dreams of where I want to be, but I had to cull through those and release some of those. The books in the garage, I had great intentions. Oh, such and such is going to love this one. Oh, I'm going to give away these books for gifts. And oh, I'm going to run these and I'm going to collect them and I'm going to do a whole spiritual book giveaway and all this stuff. Again, intentions that I did not have the bandwidth to attend to. So I took all of those and donated them. And it wasn't the books that I was holding on to. It was the ideas. It was that mental clutter that you had talked about beforehand, that what we feed the mind. And I was feeding my mind with all of this stuff and it was getting all cluttered up here. And it wasn't necessarily the book clutter, it was the mind clutter. So releasing that now, I'm far more free to explore what's in front of me, the books that I do have, the ideas that we're exploring here. And it feels good. I know some people right now are going, oh, that's just horrible. How could you let go of those? You should have sent me some. I know. That's to each their own. This is the path that I'm creating and it's a path that feels good.
The first time I let go of books, it was like my life was ending. I had to move across country and I was moving in my car and I had so many books.
Oh,
and I took them all up. I was living in Portland, so I took them all up to Powell's, which is possibly the most amazing bookstore on the planet. I don't know. I haven't been to them all, but it is definitely an amazing bookstore. And it's like new and used. So I took them all up to the counter and handed them to the guy and he was looking through them and he was like, wow, you have some amazing books here. And I was like,
Like, no, don't tell me.
just give me money.
Gosh. You're like, yes, give them back. I
And
can't.
but I felt so light afterward. I felt so light.
Yes.
And after that, it was not nearly as difficult. Not nearly as difficult each time I've done it since.
That step, I love that you mentioned that, because it is that step. It's every step that we take in the direction towards a life that we want to be living. It's really, really difficult at first because it's pulling us away from what we're used to and the comfortable.
Yes.
But every step that we take, that boink, 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 bounces us closer to that path. As we let go of that weight of that stuff that's been keeping us over here, it gets just a little bit easier. And then we go back a little bit. A little bit easier. And I love that you mentioned that, because it's true. It's so true. Oh, the feeling. I love it. Like, I want everybody to feel this feeling, that momentary release of that. And it's going to come back. Let's all be real. It's there.
Mm-hmm.
We both talked about, we're not turning these screens around, because then you're going to see what's on the other side. I'm not going to open up and dump all my thoughts on you, because then you're going to really see what's up there. That's the beauty of being with what is, and saying, look, it's here. And I think part of the reason that we want to come to you as well too, in these, the Being and Creating podcast, to come to you is a further underscore of saying you're not alone. If you've resonated with this, you aren't alone. This is what we're going through. And I guarantee if Kim and me and you are going through it, I'm willing to bet that there are some other people going through it. And that's why we're having these conversations, because it's not like life is horrible where we are, but what we're doing is just awakening ourselves to all these conversations we wouldn't otherwise be having, so that we can all start moving towards this amazing life that we want to be living, whether that includes lots of books or few books, either way. So
I have one more thought before we wrap up. And this is yet another thing that I want to share from Willpower Doesn't Work, which is your habitual actions are triggered by your environment. So if you want to change your habits, you have to create an environment where the thing that you usually do is not the obvious and default choice. What I did after reading these notes again last night was I deleted all of the game apps off of my phone. Because anytime I have 2 minutes for free thought or whatever, I grab that, because you get addicted to those little dopamine hits of those little bubbles, like disappearing. And so I went and just deleted it, so that it not only is it no longer the obvious choice, it's no longer a choice. I don't have to think about it. I don't have to decide, am I going to play this game right now, or am I going to let my thoughts just free will while I'm standing in line, because it's not going to be there.
Oh my goodness. So many thoughts that just spun off that. And I think that is such a crucial point of saying, I don't even have to think about it anymore. The decision isn't there for me to make to play this game, because when the decision is there, like you talk about, you create this environment and the decision's there for you to take, 99% of the time, we're going to default towards comfort. We're going to default towards what we did the time before, the little steps that we're taking.
Of course, because that's what we're used to doing. And even if we don't, even if we make the conscious decision to not do it, you still wasted energy making the decision.
Excellent point. Yes. And we only have so much of that energy each day, that willpower energy, like,
right.
No, I'm not going to do it. Come over here. And I'd much rather save my willpower for those things that matter a little bit more, not the, the game, phone or whatever. I love that. And there was one quote that I wanted to share too, that was just this kind of like, you know, released me into this environment that we're talking about. You know, you talk about your phone, and now when you look at your phone, it's more beautiful in a sense. I mean, that's a whole other thing. We could define beauty and what clutter keeps us from seeing within beauty, but it's more beautiful, feels more beautiful, you know? And I quoted something in the post that I wrote on this thing by Karen Maezen Miller, and she is definitely an inspiration of mine. I have many of her books. One of those is Hand Wash Cold, and I recommend these. I will put a link in there as well too. But in one of the chapters here, I'm just going to read this quote, and I'm going to let it stand alone, no backstory or anything like that. So the paragraph is, "But the other day, I looked into my kitchen cabinet and saw my own shiny stainless kettle that's been sitting unused on a shelf, and I put it on the stove to boil. I've saved enough. Now seems like the right time, the only time, to use the good stuff." And to me, that completely speaks to why we're doing any of this, getting rid of the clutter so that we can narrow it down, be with the good stuff, use the mental thoughts that we have that are brilliant because we're all wise, be enlivened by the environments around us, and let it all feel like empowering, inspiring, and at the very least, not draining stuff. So using the good tea kettle and
I love that. I love it.
yay.
We do so often. We have these beautiful things that we have, and we save them. We save them.
Right?
And what are you saving them for?
Oh my gosh, there's like a whole other conversation going on this one, you know, like what do we collect and what do we save and why do we hold on to it and why aren't we allowing ourselves to be fully with it every day? You know, wear the nice dress and wear, you know, whatever. Oh my gosh. So many conversations. That's why we're doing this. Yay.
Thank you so much for joining us. I am Kim Forman. You can find me on underthekimfluence.com, on Facebook at Under the Kimfluence, and on Instagram at The Kimfluence. We will be recording these once a week for probably the next month, and then every other week following for however long that they happen. And we'll be sending them out on Wednesdays on my personal Facebook business, or on my Facebook business page, and Lisa's as well, and then on our YouTube channels. What's your YouTube channel, Lisa?
And my YouTube channel, because you can't get that whole custom URL, I haven't set that. So
Right.
I will put a link. If you are not watching this on YouTube, I will put the link there. But it's Being Breath Lisa Renee Wilson. It's under that, but it's got that funky big long URL for that.
Oh, right, okay. So I'm just about to create my YouTube channel, so we'll put that in the link below as well.
Beautiful. We will have all of those there. In case you are not watching this on the YouTube, we'll link to one another's there. So, and I am Lisa Wilson. You can find me at Facebook at facebook.com/beingbreath. And you can also find me online at www.beingbreath.com. And of course on Instagram, I am Lisa Renee Wilson. So I look forward to connecting with any of you there. And please, 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 as we have mentioned, these conversations are for you. We could do these conversations on our own and not record them, but we are doing them to start the conversations with everybody else. So please comment, let us know what you think, get in touch with us. Let us know, did this idea resonate? Did this one fall flat? Whatever. We're still creating this as we go along too, so we want to hear what benefits you the most. So
Yes. Please join the conversation. And if you want to be sure that you don't miss any of these, sign up for Lisa's newsletter on beingbreath.com.
yes, thank you. Thank you. Excellent.
Y'all have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
See you next time.